Hi, welcome back. I'm back to talk more about the Netflix's live-action Avatar show. I'm sorry, I meant to do this all in like one video, but it turns out I just had so much to say that I spent over an hour just talking about the setup and the first two episodes, and then my voice started to die out, and so I just decided to stop. So I'm back. I'll hopefully get through at least another few episodes before my voice starts giving out again. Don't worry. Brought a water bottle this time. Anyway, let's just jump right into episode 3. Omashu. So, this starts out with another scene that's original to the show. So we see, in the Fire Nation, there's a group of people who started an assassination plot against the Fire Lord. For whatever reason, I thought the first guy, the leader guy, was Jet because he kind of looked like him, but he's not. Jet shows up later in the show, later in this episode. No, it's just this guy. And they got the help of a servant girl who's working in the palace. And so they somehow made it to the throne room until they're attacked by some guards. And the Fire Lord himself comes in, and he's like, haha, you fell right into our trap. Isn't that right, my daughter? And the servant girl, moves her headband, her, little hair things out, and it's Azula. So, this is actually a pretty good, introduction for the character. Obviously, everyone knows she's not really supposed to show up this early. She makes a couple of non-speaking cameos in the cartoon. She isn't even named. So, I really like she's introduced, essentially, being the snivelly, manipulative little shit that she is. And, going, undercover to, thwart an assassination attempt against her father. Later, we see, after, Ozai, burns them alive, again, kind of like how Sozin did the Earthbender in the first episode, he shows the note that he got at the end of the second episode to Azula, which is, the note is from Zhao saying that Zuko has found the Avatar, and he's like, well, looks like Zuko has actually accomplished something for once. And, this is definitely a change from the cartoon. In the cartoon, Ozai just hated Zuko. He just hated him. Obviously, now this is obviously done out of spite. If you, because, the backstory is that, Ursa, their Zuko and Azula's mom, was basically trying to, she hated Ozai because he's a terrible, terrible person. And she was like, I wish Zuko wasn't your son. And Ozai's like, you want that wish so badly? I'll stop treating him like he's my son then. And yeah, that's why he treats him like shit, because he's just out of spite. And it's also why he's, super favoritist to Azula, which, and also why Ursa couldn't show, any motherly affection towards her. Because it's if you show her any the same affection, she'll get it just as bad. So, yeah, essentially everything terrible that happens to the two of them is entirely Ozai's fault. Here, he doesn't seem to he's not playing favorites. In fact, when, he hears signs of Zuko actually accomplishing something, he starts looking at Azula a little more unfavorably. Well, you're just gonna have to do better then. And, this is probably gonna be a change that'll annoy some people, but I kinda like that. I kinda like how he, pits his own kids against each other. Basically to, I guess strengthen them both and make them much hardier and meaner and crueler. Make sure they're just perfect for taking the throne. And, we'll see more of this in later episodes. Anyway, that's when we go to Omashu. And, again, this is another episode that's, fusing, 3 together. So, we go to Omashu, but Aang notices what he thinks is an airbender around there. Of course, people who watch the cartoon probably know who it is immediately. But here, they walk up to Omashu, they get help from, a turnip farmer who, sort of smuggles them inside in his, truck. I actually, like, I think Aang is, like, just hidden underneath the blanket or something. We only see, like, Katara and Sokka in... No, wait, I'm missing, I'm forgetting. No, Aang just follows the what he thinks is the Airbender with his glider. No, Katara and Sokka are the only ones in the card. Okay, my bad. Of course, like, Aang finds out, oh, it's not an Airbender. It's just, you know, a kid in a wheelchair who's using a mechanical glider. So yeah, they're sort of fusing the Omashu episode with the Northern Air Temple episode, you know, with the mechanist and stuff. And so the boy, you know, Teo, they'll go visit, you know, his father, the mechanist. I think it was just called the mechanist on the cartoon. His name is Sai here. So that's interesting. And we see Cabbage Merchant. Yes, the Cabbage Merchant shows up. And he's played by the same guy who voiced him in the cartoon. It's, hold on, let me find it. Yes, James C. or Sai, or however you say that. Yeah, at first, like, he doesn't react super bad to his cabbages getting straight. He just goes like, my cabbages! Yeah, you'll see later. I wonder how people are gonna react to, like, the mechanist, because, like, I know a lot of people really didn't like him in the cartoon, because even though, like, they were like refugees going to the Northern Air Temple because no one was there. Aang, you know, got mad at him for, you know, essentially desecrating a sacred place. And I know a lot of fans, like, probably got pissed at that too. So this sort of fixes that. Sokka, like, helps him out because, you know, he likes machines. And I noticed Sokka's love of science is kind of downplayed in this show. Like, aside from here and, like, a couple other times, we don't really see much. Meanwhile, Zhao, and Zuko and Iroh notice that the Airbender was near Omashu and that they're going there. Again, here, like, Zhao is, like, offering to help, which he definitely did not do in the cartoon. Like, he's just, like, kind of an asshole. Here, it seems like he really wants to help. I don't know how I feel about that. But then, Zhao gets a letter from Azula, and she's like, hey, I'll help you, like, some way. Like, we see later that she sends, like, archers to help him, but, like, that's what makes Zhao turn against Zuko, rather than being against it from the start. Alright. Aang and Teo, like, go to, they're, you know, gliding, going in the cave, and I really like the cinematography, like, of them flying around Omashu. It just looks really cool. They go to a cave in the mountains, which is where they find blasting jelly, and they find, ropes that are, I didn't catch this, but, like, Wikipedia is telling me that they are from the turnip farmer, which you'll see who he is, like, in about a minute. That's when Katara finds out. She's, like, sort of, like, sneaking up around, and she's Sai, giving the designs to the Firebender. She's like, oh no, he works for the Fire Nation. So, like, unlike in the cartoon where they find out because there's a room dedicated to, like, Fire Nation stuff. Like, you see, like, the silk with a symbol on it. And that's when, like, she's about to confront him, but then the turnip farmer stops him, and he's Jet. Yes, this is Jet. And I gotta say, like, his hair is, like, really messy, but, like, otherwise he looks, like, spot on. Like, if Jet existed in real life, this is what he would look like. He even sounds kind of like him, too. Again, Jet was not an Omashu in the cartoon. But, you know, he lives in the Earth Kingdom. He'll probably... So, I guess this makes sense. And, he says that Sai is a Fire Nation spy. And we see, you know, his crew, which is all... They all also look very much like the cartoon. Especially, Pipsqueak, you know, the huge one. I know it's the most basic of expectation subversion, but I always thought that was cute. They have the tree. They go to their tree house. And, Jet is significantly nicer here. Or at least less jerkish. Like, obviously he's still, like, you know, kind of a terrorist. But he's like earnestly listening to Katara when she tells her story. Like, he's not, like, actively, like, pushing her to like, think bad stuff. He's like, focus on, like, what the good aspects of your mother rather than how she died. And that helps Katara form her water whip. Which, I guess the waterbending scroll didn't teach her to do? Okay. Also, like, Zuko and Iroh are exploring Omashu, and, You know, apparently no one notices the guy with the big scar on his head. And Iroh gets a lotus tile, which is going to be important for the next episode. So keep that in mind. So meanwhile, Sokka and Sai are developing the hot air balloon. We don't see it in action here, but we'll see it later. But then, Aang and Katara both return separately. They get into kind of an argument, because Aang thinks Jet is responsible for the bombings that are happening in Omashu, and Katara thinks it's Sai because she saw him as a spy. And Sokka isn't really sure. Because like, because like Jet and Sokka like don't like interact at all. Sokka doesn't really have any strong opinions on him. So, and I thought that was weird. Like, I think like one of the key elements of Jet's episode in the cartoon was Sokka, you know, not trusting him. And you know, oh yeah, another thing that makes Jet seem nicer, he doesn't beat up an old man. So, your mileage may vary on if this makes Jet more likable, or if it's just softening him for no reason. Katara goes on to Jet, and Jet says, "Yeah, I'm responsible." Like, and he just tells her that the next attack, Kasai is going to the King of Omashu, you know, King Boomy, and there's a bomb that he planted in Sai's suitcase. That's kind of, I don't know, it's less obviously psychotic than, you know, drowning a village of earthbenders just to kill some Fire Nation soldiers, but like, this is probably more illegal? You know, this is attempted regicide? Katara's like, you're a monster, you suck. Bye. And so they try to stop Jet. Then Zuko comes in and starts fighting Aang. And like, they're fighting in this area, like with like a lot of like tarps, towels, or whatever they're called. And, like, they're constantly getting tangled up in them. It must have been annoying for the actors, but like, it looks nice. It looks colorful, I'll say. They fight. Katara and Sokka go on like you know those like delivery like carts that like go throughout like the city. They jump on those. There's one time where they have to jump out of a cart and into another one, which is more belief. Which there's suspension of disbelief is pushed further when it's a cartoon, because you know we're just sort of expecting that. Here, I look at them jumping down. This is like 30 feet. And I'm like, okay, your leg should have broken from that shit. We get to the palace. One of Jet's crew, Wikipedia says this is Longshot. I keep forgetting what their names. I know there's Pipsqueak and some Ellery. But yeah, Longshot, like, trying to use the flaming arrow to detonate the bomb, because, you know, timer bombs haven't been invented yet. But Katara uses the water whip to stop it. Aang finds out that Zuko's been tracking him for 3 years because of the notebook, and that's how Zuko finds out Aang stole it. And yeah, Zuko blasts. So it's blasting again. Like, Cabbage Merchant's thing is, I think, entirely, like, exploded. And yeah, that's when we hear the big, "My cabbages!" And like, I love that. They definitely made the great move, like, bringing like the original actor in to play the character. Like, only he can shout "my cabbages" in just the perfect way. And that's when the Earthbenders arrive, and Aang is arrested, and they try to get Zuko, but Iroh causes a distraction, so Zuko can escape, and Iroh gets captured. And so Iroh and Aang are both like taken prisoner, and that's where the episode ends. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, there's like another scene where like Azula's like being an archer for some reason. I don't remember her ever displaying any archery skills in the cartoon. I know she can like use a knife and a sword, but like I've never seen her. I don't remember her doing any archery. And May and Ty Lee are here, and they do nothing. So I'm not really disappointed. I will say, I saw like Azula on like the posters and like in the trailer. I wasn't like prepared for like how, sounds a bit weird, how soft she looks. Like obviously she's a 14-year-old girl. That's what 14-year-old girls look like. But like you know, in the cartoon, it's always been kind of weird how she just looks like 4 or 5 years older than she actually is, thanks to like her makeup. But I don't know. I guess she looks fine. I was just kind of caught off guard by her looking kind of different. But you know, performance doesn't matter. I think Elizabeth Yu, not heard that name before. She does a fine enough job. You know, she's not as hammy as like Ray Delisle is in the cartoon. At least not yet. She's being she's quieter. You know, she still has to like prove herself. And Mei and Ty Lee are Mei and Ty Lee. You know, Mei's stoic and likes knives, and Ty Lee is cheerful and positive. I say Ty Lee, the girl who plays Ty Lee, like, is again about as close to what a real life version of Ty Lee would look like. Like, obviously her eyes don't take up 40% of her face, because that would look extremely weird on a human being. But you know, they look the part. Anyway, next up we have Into the Dark, which I think this is probably the most different one. Like, this is mostly the episode with Boomy, while also having the side plot where Iroh, you know, is kidnapped by Earth Kingdom soldiers and Zuko has to go rescue him. Though obviously, like, you know, in the cartoon it's just because they just sort of find him there, and you know, they're thinking, hey, this might be good. We can capture a big Fire Nation general. And you know, Zuko has to decide whether he has to chase the Avatar or find his uncle. It also combines, I think, weirdly combines like that cave episode from season 2. I honestly forgot what even happened in that episode, because like when I think season 2, I think of Azula and, you know, the stuff, and Toph and the stuff in like the Earth Kingdom and things. I don't really think of the cave. But yeah, we start with another flashback where we see like young Boomy, and we get like, you know, sort of like introduction to how like weird and kooky he is, and he gives Aang the bison whistle. So instead of Aang buying it like at a shop, it's a gift from Boomy. Aang's taken to go see Boomy. Iroh is taken to an Earth Kingdom prison camp. Okay, I'll start with the Boomy stuff. The actor who plays Boomy, like, looks and sounds basically perfect. Like, obviously he looks creepy and gross, but, like, the original character looked creepy and gross, so, like, it fits. Aang deduces that he's Boomy, like, almost right away, which is, that is definitely a change. It's kind of a neutral one in my opinion, because, like, this sort of had to be the case in order for them to do what the rest of the episode wants them to do. But, like, I kind of like how Aang had to deduce that it's Boomy through the trials, especially, you know, the last one. What? It's my name. So, in the cartoon, Boomy is, you know, just kind of like the kooky trickster mentor, who is, you know, not serious at all, you know, until, like, after Aang finds out about it. And, like, in the cartoon, he's, like, really, after Aang deduces who he is, they're really happy to see each other. Here, Boomy is much more cynical and grumpy, because he's resentful that Aang vanished like 100 years ago, and that he wasn't there to help when, like, the Fire Nation is constantly causing problems. And so we do see some traps, like Aang almost gets frozen in the, you know, the candy, which of course, you know, obviously Boomy takes a bite out to show that, you know, it's just candy, you guys. So also, like, Jet shows up for like a minute, like Jet tries to explain himself, but Katara, you know, freezes him to the pole, like how she did in the cartoon. I think this is the first time she actually, like, uses ice. And I'm like, how does she do that? I honestly don't remember how she even learned to freeze stuff in the cartoon. Maybe the waterbending girl, I don't know. That's when Sokka and Teo try to get Sai to explain himself. And of course, Sai is like, reveals that, you know, he had to protect Omashu from the Fire Nation so that everyone can be safe, which is, you know, again, slightly, you know, less morally iffy than, you know, desecrating an air nomad temple. So again, he's like, they're definitely like making him like more like fully sympathetic. So after that, Katara and Sokka learn that Aang has been captured, and so they go into like the tunnels, while Zuko, you know, he disguises himself as an Earth Kingdom soldier. Like you know, it's a typical, like, you know, oh, soldiers walking by, gets yanked off screen, fight noises, and then Zuko comes out, wearing the Earth Kingdom soldier uniform. Iroh, you know, how in the cartoon, when Iroh was captured, he left a sandal to find. Here, he drops the lotus tile, and, it's on a, you know, a split path. Obviously, Zuko has to choose whether to go after Aang or Iroh. Of course, he goes after Iroh. I don't remember if there was an actual split path in the cartoon. I think it was just like a regular. I think it was just like a path in Aang. Zuko just had to go back if you wanted to get the Avatar, but he just goes on to get Iroh. So Katara and Sokka like encounter a bunch of singers who talk about the tunnels and how no one ever comes out of those because of course that's how every like secret tunnel is in fiction. The tunnels are barely created by like people studying badger moles. I don't remember if this is like the cartoon. Again, I did not watch Book 2 to prepare myself for this. This is like the only thing from Book 2 that has like anything in the show aside from, you know, obviously some characters. The tunnels, they go through the tunnels and eventually like the tunnels are like have all these crystals, right? It looks really pretty. Like, yeah, this is like a thing where like details really help in like a live action interpretation of something. But yeah, the badger moles, the tunnels move because badger moles can, I guess, change the course of tunnels or something, and one of them attacks them. But because, you know, Katara and Sokka had sort of an argument because, you know, the plot. I don't even remember what they were arguing about. I think it was just that Sokka just didn't want Katara to like be in danger, and Katara was like, "Well, I wanna." But you know, a badger mole attacks. They're like, "I'm sorry," and then the badger mole sees that, oh, they love each other, and so it turns around and leads them to the palace. Meanwhile, like Boomy, you know, challenges Aang in a fight, and Aang is mostly just avoiding his attacks. At one point, like Boomy like brings down like some of the earth from the roof, and like he hangs it over his own head and Aang's, and he's like, "You must choose." Like, you know, obviously, because Aang can't hold up them both for very long. And I'm like, is Boomy willing to like just kill himself to like make a point? I don't know. Then Katara and Sokka arrive, and Aang just sort of like throws the earth away. Meanwhile, we get more stuff on like Iroh's backstory because remember he laid siege to Ba Sing Se for a long time, and the Earthbender guards were they were young when that happened. And I understand this like Earthbender guard as like points that like, you know, Iroh obviously killed a lot of people back then, but like the audience is immediately against it because like Iroh is Iroh, and anyone being mean to Iroh is just going to earn the fandom's ire no matter what. And after the Earth Kingdom guard was like, "You know nothing of loss. You have no humanity." That's when we got another flashback. There's a lot of flashbacks in this show. Like there were definitely some like in the cartoon. Most of them were just in like one episode. But like here, we can see like Lu Ten's funeral, and you know, Zuko offers his condolences. We don't really know in the cartoon what Zuko really thought of Lu Ten, but like here, it's basically implied that like Lu Ten was just kind of a helpful like mentor to him. You know, kind of like that. I kind of wish we could see that instead of just having it being told to us. Again, visual medium. Show, don't tell. Like even like Ozai like is, you know, actually kind of not sympathetic towards Iroh, but like he's cordial at least. He's not, you know, mocking him for being weak or something. But like in the cartoon, Ozai just sort of used Lu Ten's death as like extra like proof that Iroh is not fit for the throne to his father, Azula. I will say, like, one thing I always found weird about the cartoon is that Iroh and Ozai never interact at all. I don't even think they share the same screen, like, even once. I don't even know if they've interacted in, like, supplementary material. But, like, I don't know, I thought it was a missed opportunity considering how important sibling relationships are. With, you know, Katara and Sokka and Zuko and Azula. But I like that they actually get to, like, interact here. They do so again later, when we go over Zuko's backstory. Eventually, Zuko frees Iroh, they defeat the Earth Kingdom soldiers, but one of the Earth Kingdom soldiers, like, throws a knife and stabs Iroh in the back. Zuko just, like, pulls it out, and, like, they don't, like, treat it, so I'm guessing Iroh just has that wound there forever now? I hope they, like, patched it up, because, like, he's gonna bleed out pretty quick, because even though he's powerfully still an old man. But yeah, and then they leave, they go back to their ship, and Zuko decides not to capture the Avatar for now. Meanwhile, Boomy is, like, gets inspired by how, like, powerful, like, Aang's friendship with, like, Sokka and Katara is, and Sai helps turn in the Fire Nation spies. And so they're like, yes, we'll rejoin the fight on the Fire Nation, which, yeah, good luck with that. So Aang, Katara, and Sokka leave Omashu. Zuko watches them, but he decides not to go after them because Iroh's safety is priority. Again, you know, good guy Zuko. Well, Zuko's never really a bad guy. I still say that, like, Zuko is a good guy pretending to be a bad guy. Yeah, that's the end of episode 4. We're halfway through the show. Let's move on to episode 5. My voice isn't dying out just yet. So this next one is has a lot of differences. I think it's probably the most different one, because this is also a spirit world. This is a spirit world episode. So, while also combining stuff of the one with June. Yeah, June's in this one. We go to, like, they're moving closer to the Fire Nation. Like, Aang sees the burned down forest, you know, like in the Spirit World episode. They go to, like, the village, and they were like, oh, like, spirits are, like, kidnapping our people. Aang, who's still feeling really guilty about, you know, leaving the Airbenders, he goes to the Spirit World. Here, Sokka and Katara are also pulled in, somehow. Like, even they're not sure how it happens. They're sort of like, I guess Aang pulled us in, and they meet the giant owl, who's from the second book. I forgot his name. Wikipedia says it's Wan Xing Tong, and he's voiced by Randall Duke Kim, who we probably know as Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda. And the voice sounds really similar, so when I was listening to this, all I could hear was just Master Oogway talking to them. Well, he's a lot more harsh. He's a lot harsher than Oogway ever was. You know, Oogway is basically Kung Fu Panda's Iroh. Like, you know, he's pure and perfect, and he must be protected at all costs. But, like, only Aang can hear him. And so they have to, like, stay out of trouble. But, you know, trouble finds them. We see, like, the vengeful spirit of the burned down forest who attacks them. And, like, this is really weird. All three are transported to, like, areas of, like, trauma for them. This is so strange. I've noticed this happen a lot in shows lately. Like, the Ahsoka show, like, in the World 2 Worlds is sort of transported back to the Clone Wars, to some big battles. And in, like, Rings of Power, when Sauron reveals himself, he kind of, like, transports Galadriel in her mind to, like, back to Valinor with her brother, and, like, that one sucked, though. I like the Ahsoka one. Like, that's actually the best part of the show. But here, like, Katara's transported to the day when when Firebenders raided the Southern Water Tribe, and her mother is again burned alive right in front of her. And yeah, that is like Katara constantly gets flashbacks to that, like, early on in the show, and, like, again, I don't think we see that, like, at all in the cartoon. I don't even think, yeah, like, her mother, like, I don't think she appears until, like, book 3, and again, in flashback. But like Katara is like traumatized by that, and that's why her waterbending was like held back. All right. And then she sees a familiar like masked face, and it just sort of envelops the screen, and we go to Sokka. Sokka talks to a fox spirit, which I was like a three-tailed fox with a ring on one of its tails, and I was like, wait, why is this here? Turns out that fox ends up being pretty important, as you'll see like in later episodes. But then Sokka goes to like a memory when he's doing some like tests in the Water Tribe, and then he overhears like his dad calling him like a disappointment or something. Which, all right, I don't recall that ever being in the cartoon. I always thought like Sokka had a good relationship with his dad, and like you know Sokka's dad leaving is what made Sokka try to be like a warrior. Because, like, yeah, Sokka trying to be a warrior is essentially his character, is the closest thing he has to a character arc here, since, like, they cut out the whole Sokka learns not to be sexist thing from earlier in the show. And then, you know, the mask thing eats him. Aang also sees this mask thing, and it's Ko. You know, the face stealer guy. So this is weird. Ko is more of an antagonist here. Like, in the cartoon, he's just sort of like this sort of neutral evil. Like, he wasn't really doing anything, it's just if someone came up to him, he would attack them. They also don't seem to be going on the, if you show an emotion in front of him, he'll just eat your face. That's not here, because like Aang definitely shows emotion here, and he doesn't do anything. Ko attacks Aang, and Aang flees the fog, and he goes to like, again, one of his own memories. Or, so he thinks, it's actually another area in the spirit realm. He finds Gyatso, who apparently chose to stay behind in the spirit realm instead of moving on. And Gyatso gives him some advice, tells him to go find Avatar Roku. And, you know, Gyatso like, tells him, like, don't blame yourself. If you had not run away from the air nomads, you would have been killed. And, like, you know, that sort of, like, gets Aang to stop blaming himself for the Fire Nation's genocide on the air nomads. Meanwhile, Zuko and Iroh are still trying to track down the Avatar. And that's when Iroh enlists June, who, again, like, June looks like exactly how she looks in the cartoon. She sounds different, her voice is a bit higher. Something else I find interesting is that, like, you know how in the cartoon, like, Iroh is almost uncharacteristically, like, you know, kind of flirting with her. Here, June's the one who flirts with Iroh, and Iroh's the one who gets kind of flustered. I don't know, it's like, it's not important, it just goes up, like, twice or 3 times. But, you know, it's just something, it's just an interesting change. And so, you know, June goes to track them down. Meanwhile, in the Fire Nation, Azula is trying to convince Ozai to, like, help give Zhao more resources. And Ozai is like, alright, sure. But remember, Zuko is the one who found him, and he's fighting with honor rather than trying to manipulate someone. It's like, and that kind of shuts her up. So she gives Zhao the archers, who, you know, we'll see, like, in the part where Zhao captures Aang. And so Zhao's promoted from commander to admiral. Even though, like, I don't think Zhao has really done anything admiral-y. Like, in the cartoon, like, by this point, he would have been part of multiple, like, big battles. And, like, so that's just sort of where the episode ends, with, like, Aang, like, going to, like, Roku's shrine at the volcano. This next episode, yeah, episode 6, it's called Masks because, well, guess who shows up? This one's the closest to the original cartoon. Like, it still, like, fuses stuff from other episodes, but, like, most of this episode is a pretty straightforward retelling of the Blue Spirit episode. Throughout this episode, we see this is Zuko's backstory, where, like, you know, he goes to the war meeting, and, like, the Ozai, the generals, want to, like, sacrifice a group of new recruits to, you know, as a distraction, because you know, Fire Nation likes doing that. Ozai is definitely on the "we have reserves" mentality. And Zuko is like, "What? That's terrible! Don't do that!" And of course, because he disrespected them, he'll have to settle this through an Angikai. And next morning, he's like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna fight my dad." And yeah, this is when, like, the Fire Lord, like, takes off his shirt, and the entire internet goes, "Oh no, he's hot!" I made that joke last time, but I don't care. So here, he actually fights him. Like in the cartoon, Zuko just would not fight him, and that's why Ozai decided to, like, burn him. Here they fight, and Zuko actually kind of has his father on the ropes at one point, but he won't deliver a finishing blow, so Ozai is, of course, like, "You're weak!" And he, like, flips around, and that's when he's, like, decides to, like, burn him. Though, interestingly, like watching, like, all the, like, obviously, Iroh, like, still turns away, because, like, obviously, you know, he actually cares. Like, weirdly, like, Ozai and Azula don't seem to be enjoying this either. Like, Ozai looks almost pained to do it, and Azula's sort of, like, she kind of has a neutral expression, but you can tell that she's internally horrified. Unlike the cartoon where she's just like, that idiot. While Zuko's healing up, initially it seems that, like, Ozai is, like, willing to let burning him be punishment enough. And he's like, "What separates us from the rest of the world is that we can sacrifice the weak to win." And Zuko obviously disagrees. He's like, "But, like, don't they deserve the chance to become stronger?" And Ozai is just like, "Compassion is a sign of weakness." And that's what makes him banish Zuko from the Fire Nation. You can only return when you've found and captured the Avatar. So, like in the cartoon, Ozai is just evil and hateful enough that, yeah, he would do that. Here, Ozai doesn't hate Zuko. It's just more like, you know, a dad finding a punishment for his son. So, like, setting him on a snipe hunt to go find the Avatar, that seems a bit overkill for this one. I don't know. And then Ozai says, "Oh, and since you care about the 41st Division so much, take them with you." And so we find out that Zuko's crew, that's the division that he saved, which that was not in the cartoon. I actually like this change quite a bit. Like, it actually, like, sort of, like, straightens their connection. Like, previously, like, in that Storm episode, like, Zuko sort of proves himself by, like, he rescues them from the storm, which, you know, that is good. And, like, honestly, like, for a visual medium, I like that more because, like, we see him help them out. While here, he just kind of doesn't really do anything. But I like that they're given, like, the connection here, as the crew reminded that Zuko is the reason they're all alive, because he actually kind of cares about them. Meanwhile, Aang is going to the Roku's, like, temple to ask him how he could deal with Ko and save his friends. Well, the fire sages, you know, they turn on him, but, you know, obviously the one defector is there to help Aang. And, like, I have no idea how this guy, like, fends off all the others, because, like, in the cartoon, Katara and Sokka were also there. But yeah, Aang goes to Roku. Roku is, kind of weirdly jokey. I just thought that was weird. Like, in the cartoon, he was just sort of, you know, typical old mentor with this really scratchy voice that is probably going to ruin my own throat if I keep talking like this. Okay, I'll see slow. Like, you know what I mean. Roku revealed that he took a statue from Ko that belonged to Ko's mother. That is definitely not from the cartoon. And says that Aang can, like, trade that with Ko for his friend's safety. Because, yeah, Ko doesn't just eat people's faces, he just sort of webs them up in, like, spiderweb, and then, like, apparently it takes a really, really, really long time to get to actually eating them. And Roku tells Aang to not rely on friends too much. He doesn't mention by name. Roku is definitely referring to Sozin, since Sozin kind of let him die, at least in the cartoon. When Aang gets out of the shrine, sees that the fire sages are like paralyzed. He's like, wait, what? That's when June comes in. I have no idea how June tracked Aang all the way there, because Aang flew there, and like in the cartoon, June was tracking Katara, because like Zuko had like her necklace, and he held up like the necklace to like June's beast, and like that's how they were able to track Katara. Because, you know, if Katara's there, then Aang is there. I guess I did fly an Appa though, so maybe I don't know where I was going with this. June captures Aang, and Zuko is ready to take him back to the Fire Nation. That's when Zhao comes up and feels like, haha, I'm working against you now. And so he steals Aang and locks him up at the Fire Nation base. And he starts like bragging and boasting. This is a really weird episode for Zhao, because like here he's a lot more, not really comedic, I guess. But like he's always been an arrogant braggart. But like here he's like the timing especially just makes it sound like, you know, it's like, I'm doing epic. Oh hey, can I like make like a comment here? I don't know. You know, he still wants to be like thought of as like super great. He's definitely, his ego I think is honestly even more massive than it is in the cartoon. And of course then, you know, the blue spirit comes in, and it's basically just literally the cartoon. This is like the only time in the show where something is literally just the cartoon, but like again. And if I wanted to watch this cartoon, I'd watch the cartoon. So like this is entertaining, but like I kind of wish they did other things. Like, yeah, they escape. Zuko like holds up his swords to Aang's throat to prevent Zhao from taking him, and Zhao decides to like let him go. One of the archers that Azula hired for Zhao knocks Zuko out. Aang rescues Zuko, and they hide out in like a barn. Zuko gets really like triggered when like Aang talked about how compassionate Zuko was. You know, that's part of where the flashback plays. And Zuko like goes nuts. He attacks Aang, Aang knocks him out, and puts Zuko on his boat, and sails him away while Aang escapes. So during this whole time, Iroh was telling the crew about that story. And previously, like, the lieutenant, his name is G, was saying, he may be a prince, but he's not our prince. But like after Iroh tells him the story about how Zuko is the reason they're all still alive, they all welcome him back, like, they go like, our prince has returned, and you know, that does feel good, that does feel satisfying. Meanwhile, Aang goes back to the spirit realm, he gives Ko the statue, and everyone who was captured by him, like, escapes. He goes back to find Gyatso because he says he would, and then it turns out Gyatso disappeared. I don't know why, maybe he just decided to move on, finally. And I think the rest of the show is just like the last two episodes are the last 3 from the cartoon. I've been talking for over an hour. My voice is like isn't quite as scratchy as now, but I'm gonna stop here for now. I'm gonna talk about the finale and like final thoughts like in like a part 3. And I know this whole thing is probably gonna be over 3 hours. That's just how it is. I've got so much to say. I haven't even talked about the performances yet. I haven't even talked about stuff where the series could go. We still haven't even talked about you and the water spirits and these things. Like, anyway, that's it for me. See you guys with the last 2 episodes then. Bye.